There are moments in life where everything changes, not gradually, but in an instant. Not because the world shifted, but because you did. It doesn't take 100 steps to change your life. It just takes one right one. So I'm asking you, what if you only needed to do this once? What if by doing this one thing, you could set a new course, a better one, a braver one? Let's talk about the power of that one choice and how to make it count. We live in a world where busyness has become a badge of honor, where exhaustion is mistaken for excellence, where productivity is reduced to how many tasks we can tick off before we collapse into bed, only to wake up and do it all over again. We scroll through endless feeds, respond to notifications like Pavlovian dogs, and chase every opportunity thrown at us, hoping one of them leads to fulfillment. But here's the truth. Movement isn't momentum. Just because we're in motion doesn't mean we're going anywhere that truly matters. We are surrounded by noise, and in that noise, we often lose our voice. There is a subtle, dangerous comfort in being swept along by the current. When everyone around us is running, it's tempting to run with them, even if we don't know where the race ends. But the danger in that is we become spectators of our own lives, mistaking action for purpose. If you want to build something that matters, if you want to live a life that matters, the first step isn't to move faster, it's to stop, to breathe, to ask yourself the question most people are too afraid to face. What am I doing this for? We all have a once, one decision that defines, one moment that cracks the surface of ordinary and lets something extraordinary emerge. But that moment doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with confetti or applause. It arrives quietly, disguised as a simple choice. A chance to say yes when the world expects you to say no. A chance to stand still when everyone else keeps running. It's in that stillness that we find something rare. Intention is not about having all the answers. It's not about predicting outcomes or guaranteeing success. It's about choosing your direction before you start walking. It's about deciding who you want to be, not what you want to do. When we decide with intention, we stop asking what should I do next, and start asking what would someone like me do next. That shift from doing to being changes everything. Think of Rosa Parks. She didn't set out to change the world. She wasn't motivated by legacy or fame. She didn't plan a movement. She lived with quiet courage, and one day she made a decision, a simple, personal, deeply intentional decision. She refused to give up her, not to prove a point, but because her dignity wouldn't let her. That was her once, and it sparked a fire. We have this myth that clarity comes from thinking harder, analyzing more, or having a perfect plan. But clarity doesn't come from the head. It comes from the gut. It comes from being radically honest with ourselves. It comes when we stop chasing what's expected and start listening to what we already know. Inside each of us is a voice, a compass that points us toward our purpose. But we drown it out with the noise of shoulds and obligations and fears disguised as practicality. When we finally sit in silence long enough, we realize the answers were never missing. We were just afraid to hear them. There's a moment for every one of us when we are asked by circumstance, by crisis, by opportunity, who we really are. And the question is never answered by credentials or resumes or the number of followers we've collected. It's answered by and those choices made with intention become the story of our lives. Not the story others expect us to live, but the one that was always ours to write. It takes courage to live with intention, because intention demands we stop hiding behind busyness, behind excuse, behind the false comfort of certainty. Intention asks us to show up fully, unguarded, vulnerable, and real. And that's terrifying. But it's also freeing, because when we decide with intention, we're no longer defined by the outcome. We're defined by the alignment between our values and our actions. And that kind of integrity doesn't just build success. It builds significance. So many of us are waiting for permission, waiting for the right time, the perfect plan, the guaranteed result. But those things never come. What comes is this moment, this one, right here. And it asks only one thing of us. Decide. Decide not from fear, not from habit, not from what others expect. Decide from your center. Decide from your truth. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who are alive, fully unapologetically alive. And we become that not by reacting to life, but by choosing how we meet it. Not every choice will change the world, but every choice changes you. And when we change from the inside out, the world can't help but respond. There is a stillness available to you right now, a pause before the next step. And in that pause, there is power, the power to live a life that isn't about keeping up, but about showing up. A life that isn't about being seen, but about being known. A life that trades reaction for purpose and motion for meaning. We may not all get to change the course of history, but we all get to change the course of our own lives. And sometimes that's how history is made. One person, one decision, one moment of intentional courage. The invitation isn't to do more. It's to matter more, to show up for your life, with eyes wide open and a heart that refuses to sleepwalk through your days. To decide not because you have to, but because you want to, because something inside you whispers this. And when that whisper becomes louder than the noise of the world, that's when the fire begins. There's something deeply comforting about having a backup plan. It sits there in the shadows, whispering promises of safety, like a parachute tucked behind us, just in case. We're told from a young age that being practical means planning for the worst. We're encouraged to keep our options open, not to put all our eggs in one basket. But that safety net, what if it's actually a trap? What if the very thing we lean on for security is the same thing holding us back from greatness? There's a fundamental truth we don't talk about often enough. As long as we have a backup plan, we are not all in. We haven't jumped. We haven't truly chosen. We're just towing the edge of the cliff, watching others fly while we hold on to the railing. It's not that we don't want to leap. It's that we've convinced ourselves we can try without risk. We believe we can go all the way with one foot still on the brake. But the most transformational growth happens when we remove the option to turn back. Think of Cortez. When he landed in the New World, he ordered his men to burn the ship, not because he was reckless, but because he knew something profound about human nature. If you give people a way out, they'll take it. Not because they're weak, but because they're human. When adversity strikes, when the path gets steep and treacherous, our instinct is to retreat to what we know, to what feels familiar and safe. But there is no greatness in the familiar. When the ships are gone, when the bridge behind you is dust, something remarkable happens. You wake up, the haze of fear, doubt, and hesitation lifts. Your senses sharpen, your instincts ignite, because there's no turning back. There is only forward. And in that forward you will discover something you never saw coming. Your true capacity, your real edge. That part of you that's been dormant, waiting for the moment when it's either rise or fall. This isn't about being impulsive. It's not about throwing caution to the wind or making reckless choices. This is about commitment. Real, unapologetic, all-in commit. It's about making a decision so clear and so bold that the only way is through. There's a fire that lights when we commit. At this level, a clarity of purpose that cuts through the noise. Doubt becomes smaller, not because it disappears, but because it has no room to grow when we stop feeding it with exit options. And yes, fear will still be there. Of course it will. Fear is a companion of the brave. But when there's no plan B, that fear doesn't paralyze. It focuses. It drives. It sharpens your resolve and forces you to find answers, to innovate, to dig deeper than you ever thought possible. You start to realize just how much power was inside you all along. It's easy to dream big when you know you can fall back. It's harder, more terrifying, but infinitely more rewarding to dream big when there's no safety net. That's where the magic is. That's where growth lives. That's where transformation begins. Think about the people you admire most. The leaders, the visionaries, the trailblazers. None of them got to where they are by hedging their bets. They committed, fully. They faced rejection, ridicule, and risk. And they kept moving forward. Not because they knew they would win, but because they believed that what they were chasing was worth the fall. Burning the backup plan is not about being certain. It's about being devoted. It's about choosing to believe in your mission, your calling, your path, so deeply that you won't settle for a diluted version of your life. It's about refusing to give the best years of your life to a plan you don't love, just because it's safe. We weren't built for mediocrity. We were built for courage, for impact, for that electric feeling that comes from chasing something that matters with every ounce of who we are. But that can't happen while we're still half in, half out. You don't get to experience the full power of what you're capable of until you take the leap without a net. There's a version of you on the other side of that commitment. A stronger, braver, more alive version. You don't find that version by playing it safe. You find it by setting fire to your plan B and stepping fully into the fire of your own potential. You find it by betting on yourself, even when the odds aren't clear, especially when the odds aren't clear. And that decision, that moment when you say, I'm in, no turning back, that changes everything. That changes you. It's the line in the sand between a life of what ifs and a life of I did, between surviving and truly living. So whatever your plan B is, whatever quiet, dusty escape hatch you've kept in the corner of your mind, it's time to let it go, burn it, walk away from it. Not because it's bad, but because it's not the path to your purpose. Because you deserve more than a fall. You deserve to see what happens when you go all in. The only way to build something extraordinary is to leave no room for ordinary. The only way to find the extraordinary within yourself is to stop giving yourself away to stay small. Burn the backup plan and build the life that can only exist when you. We live in a world where comfort is the goal. We crave it. We build entire lives around minimizing struggle, avoiding challenge, and creating the illusion of control. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Nothing worth having, nothing meaningful ever comes from comfort. Growth demands a toll, and that toll is discomfort. If you want to evolve, to rise above who you are today, you must step into places that unsettle you. You must get uncomfortable on purpose. Growth isn't a gentle process. It's raw, real, and often painful. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by taking a nap. It struggles, it breaks, it transforms. That pain, that resistance is not the enemy. It's the very sign that you are changing. That stretch, that ache in your muscles, that tremble in your voice, that doubt in your mind is the birthplace of strength. It's the forge where your future self is molded. Look at anyone who has achieved something remarkable, not the ones who inherited their platform or coasted on luck, but those who built themselves from the ground up. Their stories are laced with rejection, with failure, with nights they questioned if it was all worth it. And they kept going, not because they were fearless, but because they were willing to lean into the discomfort and trust that the pain had a purpose. Consider an Olympic athlete. What we see on TV, the polished performance, the gold medal, the national anthem, is just the final chapter of a story that began in the quiet, early mornings, when the world was asleep, and they laced up their shoes anyway. Days when their bodies screamed for rest, but they pushed a little further. Moments when defeat stared them in the face, and they got up anyway. They didn't become great because it was easy. They became great because they embraced hard, over and over and over again. Discomfort is not just a barrier to greatness. It is the path, the currency. And here's the most beautiful part. Once you pay it, once you lean in and choose it, the return is exponential, not just in skill or status, but in who you become. You begin to build a new relationship with fear. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I never try? You stop looking for safety and start looking for meaning. And meaning never lives in a comfort zone. We all carry dreams, ideas, and goals that live just beyond our current capacity. But they're not unreachable. They're just uncomfortable. That book you want to write, that career change you're scared to make, that conversation you've been avoiding, all of them sit on the other side of discomfort. You don't need more time or more talent or someone's permission. You need courage. The courage to choose growth over ease. And let's be honest, discomfort isn't glamorous. It doesn't come with applause or hashtags. It comes with silence, with self-doubt, with stumbling before you stride. But in those quiet moments, when no one is watching, you are rewriting your story. You are showing yourself what you're made of. There is power in being the person who walks toward challenge when others retreat, who chooses the harder path, not because it's noble, but because it's necessary. Because deep down, you know the life you're meant to live won't be found by staying where it's safe. You have to chase it into the unknown, and that chase will cost you. But the reward is a life fully lived, a life where you don't wonder what if, because you found out. It's not about being fearless. It's about feeling the fear, the discomfort, the uncertainty, and stepping forward anyway. It's about training your mind to understand that discomfort is not danger. It's data. It's feedback. It's the signal that you're doing something that matters. And the more you expose yourself to it, the more resilient you become. The more you step into it, the more you realize you were never fragile. You were just waiting to be tested. So the next time life gives you the chance to stay comfortable or to stretch, choose the not once, not occasionally, but as a practice, as a mindset, as a lifestyle. Choose the workout that's harder, the project that scares you, the conversation that makes your stomach churn, and not because you have to, but because you want to grow, because you want to stop watching your potential from a distance and start living it. You were not born to blend in. You were not designed to plateau. You were meant to expand, to evolve, to rise. But to do that, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to risk being seen trying, risk falling, risk not being the best yet, because what waits on the other side of that risk is not just success, it's transformation. It's the moment you stop chasing greatness and start embodying it. And here's the final truth. Discomfort doesn't just change what you can do. It changes who you are. It strips away the noise, the ego, the excuses, and reveals the part of you that's been waiting to be awakened. The version of you that's bold, brave, unstoppable. You want growth, real growth. Then go where it hurts, go where it's awkward, go where you're not sure how it's going to end, and go with your whole heart. Because greatness isn't found in the easy, it's found in the stretch. And you are more than capable of rising to meet it, one uncomfortable step at a time. There comes a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes roaring, when we stand at a crossroad. One path leads to silence, the other to truth. And often we choose silence, telling ourselves it's the easier way, the safer way. We rationalize, we justify, we pretend we're doing it for harmony, for unity, for the greater good. But what we're really doing is protecting ourselves from discomfort. We're protecting ourselves from the vulnerability that comes with saying what we truly mean. But here's the truth no one wants to say. Silence is not safety. Silence is a slow erosion. Every time we swallow our words, every time we hold back what we really think, what we really feel, we chip away at our integrity. We chip away at our relationships. And we chip away at the connection we have to ourselves. The cost of silence is invisible at first. It's subtle. It looks like a smile you don't mean, a yes you didn't want to give, a promise you knew you couldn't keep. But over time, it becomes something heavier, something darker. It becomes resentment. Resentment doesn't show up all at once. It creeps. It builds slowly in the cracks of conversations we never had. It nests in the gaps between what we feel and what we say. It whispers, "You don't matter," every time you choose their comfort over your truth. And here's the twist. We think we're doing others a favor by holding it all in. But the people around us, they know. They feel the weight of our unspoken words. They feel the tension. The energy shifts. The air thickens. Trust becomes brittle. Relationships become performance. And love, no matter how deep, cannot survive long in the absence of truth. It doesn't matter if it's your boss, your partner, your friend, or yourself. When you choose silence over truth, you abandon the opportunity for real connection. You abandon the chance for growth. Because speaking your truth isn't about winning an argument or asserting dominance. It's about standing in alignment with who you are. It's about choosing courage over comfort, clarity over confusion. We fear that truth will destroy what we have, but often it's the only thing that can save it. Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone who matters, someone whose opinion weighs heavy on your heart. Maybe it's the person who signs your paycheck. Maybe it's the person you share a bed with. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the person staring back at you in the mirror. And there's something you need to something that's been building inside of you. Maybe it's a dream you've buried, a need you've denied, a boundary that's been crossed too many times. And you've been holding back, telling yourself it's not the right time, that you don't want to hurt anyone, that it's just easier to let it go. But it's not easier. It never is. Because that truth, it's not going away. It will haunt your thoughts, echo in your heart, and sit in your chest like a weight you can't lift, until one day it bursts out, in anger, in bitterness, in silence, so loud it drowns everything else. Or if you're brave, it comes out as a whisper, as a shaky voice, as a tearful confession. And that moment, raw, messy, imperfect, is the beginning of everything. It's the moment you choose yourself. You see, honesty is not cruelty. It's not an attack. It's an offering, an invitation. It's saying, here I am. This is what I feel. This is what I need. Will you meet me here? And yes, it's terrifying, because truth makes us vulnerable. But vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of trust, of intimacy, of belonging. People don't connect to perfection. They connect to presence. They connect to real. And when you speak your truth, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart pounds, you give others permission to do the same. You create a culture, whether in your workplace, your home, or your own mind, where authenticity is the norm, not the exception, where people don't have to perform to be accepted, where boundaries are respected, and expectations are clear, where mistakes can be owned, not hidden, where growth becomes possible. And the beautiful paradox is this: when you say what you mean, even when it's hard, you don't just set yourself free, you free everyone around you. There's someone in your life right now who needs to hear your truth. Maybe they're waiting for clarity. Maybe they're walking on eggshells. Maybe they're confused, hurt, or simply unaware. And your words, your honest, human words, could be the bridge. Or maybe that someone is you. Maybe you've been living on autopilot, smiling through burnout, nodding through dissatisfaction, shrinking to fit into roles you never chose. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to look in the mirror and speak aloud the truth you've been too afraid to admit. Because the most important conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Ask yourself, what am I not saying? What truth have I locked away because I thought it would be too much, too messy, too painful? And what would happen if I let it out? Not everything you say will be received the way you hope. Not everyone will understand. Some relationships might change. Some may even end. But the ones that remain, they'll be stronger, more honest, more real. Because when you strip away pretense, when you remove the mask, when you choose to be seen, fully and unapologetically, you make room for the kind of connection that doesn't just last, it transforms. So say what you mean, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because the world doesn't need more polite liars. It needs people who are willing to show up with their whole hearts. People who aren't afraid to speak the truth, even when it trembles in their throat. People who choose integrity over approval, courage over convenience. Everything changes the moment you. There comes a moment in all of our lives when we must confront the truth of our pain. We've all been wronged, betrayed, misunderstood, left behind. Sometimes it's from the people we trusted the most. Sometimes it's a word, a lie, an action that sliced through our hearts and left a scar we still trace with our fingers late at night. And in those moments, in the quiet that follows the storm, we are given a choice whether to carry that pain forward or to set it down. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's not forgetting. It's not pretending the pain never existed. It's not a stamp of approval on injustice. It is instead the ultimate declaration of self-respect. It is the moment you say, I will not be shackled to this pain. I will not hand over my joy, my clarity, my future to the person who caused my suffering. There is a lie we've all been sold. The lie is that holding on to resentment gives us control. That nursing the wound somehow gives us power over the one who wounded us. But in truth, it only binds us tighter to them. We replay the scene, the conversation, the betrayal, again and again, like a broken record that keeps playing the same aching tune. That loop becomes our identity, our narrative. It shapes how we show up in the world. It changes how we love. It narrows our vision and steals our breath. All the while, the person who wronged us moves on, unaware, untouched, while we are left drinking the poison of our own bitterness. It's a paradox, isn't it? That something so hard could be so healing. That to free ourselves, we must do the very thing we least want to do. Let go. Not just in word, not just in a moment of weakness, but once and fully. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to let that person back into your life. It doesn't mean what happened was okay. It simply means you are no longer willing to let the pain sit in the driver's seat. You are reclaiming your story. You are rewriting your ending, not with anger, but with courage, not with vengeance, but with wisdom. And yes, it's hard. It's hard because the wound was deep. It's hard because maybe they never said sorry. Maybe they never will. It's hard because sometimes the one you have to forgive is yourself. The choices you made, the chances you didn't take, the version of you who didn't know better. But even then, especially then, you must offer grace. Because without it, you'll keep punishing a ghost, and the only person imprisoned will be you. We live in a world that rewards outrage, that feeds on division, that tells us if someone hurts us we should cancel them, silence them, destroy them. But where has that left us? More fractured, more afraid, more alone. Forgiveness in this world is an act of rebellion. It is a refusal to let pain be the final word. It is the most radical form of freedom we have. We talk so much about purpose, about meaning, about living a life of significance, but you cannot live a truly meaningful life while dragging a bag of broken relationships behind you. You cannot build something beautiful on a foundation of unresolved pain. Forgiveness is not just something you give to others. It's something you do for yourself. It clears the fog. It opens your hands. It quiets the noise. And in that space, you can breathe again. You can dream again. You can move forward, lighter, stronger, unburdened. Think about what you could do with all that energy you've spent holding on to the past. What could you create? Who could you become? What love could you finally accept into your life? That's the gift of forgiveness. That's what's on the other side of the hard choice. There are people walking around today carrying years, decades of pain, not because they can't move on, but because they won't let go. And every day they feed the bitterness. They grow more disconnected from the world, from others, and from themselves. But you don't have to live like that. You can decide today that you've had enough. You can decide that your peace matters more than your pride, that your future deserves better than the chains of your past. You can decide that healing is more important than being right. Forgiveness isn't something you do over and over again until it finally sticks. It's a decision, a line in the sand. You draw it once, you step over, you don't look back. That doesn't mean the pain disappears overnight, but it means it no longer controls you. It means every time the memory comes up, you meet it with compassion, not hatred, with understanding, not vengeance. And little by little, the wound becomes a scar. And scars don't hurt the way wounds do. They remind us of what we've survived. They tell the story of how we made it through. There will always be people who don't understand this, who call forgiveness foolish, who say you should hold your ground, exact your justice, keep your armor up. But you are not here to live small. You are not here to be safe. You are here to be whole. And wholeness demands that you release what no longer serves you. So forgive, fully, and once. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Give without expecting. It's such a simple phrase, yet it holds a radical power that most people never tap into. Because we live in a world where almost everything has a transaction attached. Time for money, service for praise, effort for recognition. But real power, the kind that moves people and changes the trajectory of lives, lies in what we do when no one is watching. It's in those moments where we give, not out of obligation, not out of guilt, not for applause, but because we have something to give, and someone needs. Imagine this. Your day is normal, maybe even a little frustrating. You're running errands, thinking about the next task, the next email, the next meeting. Then you see someone struggling at the register. Their card declines. The air you feel that hesitation, that internal pull between continuing with your day and stepping into someone else's moment. And you choose to act. You swipe your card. You say, I've got it. Just like that. You might forget that moment by tomorrow. But for the person on the receiving end, it could be the moment they remember forever. Because you didn't just pay for groceries. You gave dignity. You gave proof that kindness still exists. You reminded someone that the world, despite all its flaws, still holds room for grace. That woman who cried in line, she wasn't crying over milk and bread. She was crying because someone finally saw her. Not the struggle, not the mess, not the pain, just her. And the beauty of it, that man didn't do it for anything. He didn't know her story. He didn't need to. He didn't post about it. Didn't ask for her name. Didn't expect a thank you. His reward was in the act itself. The decision to give, freely, generously, quietly. That's what giving without expecting looks like. It's quiet. It's unassuming. It doesn't care who's watching. It doesn't check the scoreboard. It doesn't even know there is a scoreboard. It gives because that's what hearts do when they're full and open and free. The world teaches us to build resumes, reputations, and portfolios. But what if we measured life by the impact we leave behind in the hearts of others? What if we valued how many people we lifted when we didn't have to? How many tears we dried that we never saw fall? How many smiles we caused when we weren't even. You see, giving doesn't always look like heroism. It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. Sometimes it's simply sitting with someone in silence when they're in pain. Sometimes it's choosing patience over irritation. Sometimes it's telling someone you matter, just because you know they haven't heard it in a while. And here's the truth. Giving without expecting changes you. It shifts something inside. The more you give without needing anything in return, the more you realize how much you actually, not in things but in presence, in love, in time. And the more you give those things away, the more they multiply. We're conditioned to protect our energy, to guard our hearts, to be careful who we trust. And yes, there is wisdom in boundaries, but there is also boldness in giving anyway, loving anyway, believing anyway. Even when the world tells you to be cautious, even when your kindness is misunderstood, even when your generosity is not returned. Because at the end of the day, giving is not a strategy, it's a reflection of who we are, of what we believe, of the world we want to help shape. And every single time we choose to give without expecting, we push that vision forward. We become architects of hope. We become builders of trust. We become examples of what's possible when ego steps aside and humanity steps. So when the moment comes, and it always does, don't hesitate. Give the compliment, pay the tab, offer your seat, lend your ear, share your time, and do it not because it will come back to you, but because someone needs it now, because someone needs to feel that they're not alone, because someone needs to be reminded that goodness hasn't given up on them yet. You won't always see the outcome. You won't always know the backstory. You might never hear the words thank you, but that's okay, because the goal was never recognition. The goal was connection. And every act of giving is a thread in a tapestry far greater than ourselves. The ripple effect of your kindness can't be measured. It moves through people, through moments, through generation. One small act, one seemingly insignificant decision to step into someone else's need, can be the very thing that saves them, or inspires them, or heals them. And in that way, giving is not just generous, it's sacred. So give boldly, give freely, give when it's easy and when it's not. Give when it's convenient and when it's inconvenient. Give even when you're tired, and especially when the world feels cold, because your act of kindness might just be the one thing that restores someone's faith in humanity. And isn't that worth it? Isn't that what we're here for? Not to be remembered for what we kept, but for what we gave away. The most powerful action you will ever take in your life isn't necessarily the grandest. It isn't the one with the biggest spotlight or the loudest applause. It's the first step. It's the decision to begin. Not tomorrow, not when the stars align, not when you feel ready, but now, today. There's something profound about that moment, when a person decides to stop waiting and starts moving. It's subtle. It doesn't come with fireworks or fanfare, but it's a seismic shift. It's the quiet revolution that separates those who live with meaning from those who live with regret. We often get trapped in a story that tells us we need to be more qualified, more experienced, more prepared. We think the beginning of something important must be heralded by a perfect plan, a clear roadmap, or someone else's permission. But life doesn't work like that. Growth doesn't come dressed in certainty, and meaning isn't handed to you in a sealed envelope labeled ready. You already have everything you need. You just need to start. When we look back at the moments that shaped us, they were rarely preceded by confidence. They were preceded by courage. The courage to be terrible at something new. The courage to write the first line of a book that may never be read. The courage to say, "I'm sorry," and not know if it will be accepted. The courage to take the first steps of a business with no investors, no safety net, and no guarantee. But here's what makes that kind of courage powerful. It's not about being fearless. It's about choosing to act while still being afraid. That's what starting is. It's an act of defiance against fear. We're so good at convincing ourselves that later will be better. We call it planning or timing or strategy, but it's often just fear wearing a disguise. The myth of the right time is the most elegant form of procrastination. We imagine there will be a day when we feel braver, more certain, more deserving. But here's the truth. That day doesn't come, not because it can't, but because you don't grow into readiness. You grow because you started anyway. Readiness is a result of motion, not a prerequisite for it. Statistically, 92% of people who set goals will never reach them. But it's not because they lack discipline or vision. It's because they never got out of the starting gate. They never made the phone call. They never wrote the first paragraph. They never told someone how much they cared. They were waiting for clarity, for confidence, for someone to say it's okay. And while they waited, life went on. Opportunities passed. Relationships drift. Dreams collected dust in the corners of their minds. But you sitting here right now, you're at the edge of that choice. This is your once. This is your chance to start, to do it scared, to do it messy, to do it imperfectly. And let me be honest, it will be messy. It might hurt. You might fall, but falling is progress. Falling is proof that you were moving. And that's what makes it beautiful. You see, we aren't shaped by our intentions. We're shaped by our actions. Intentions are dreams without wings. Actions are dreams with gravity. They bring ideas down to earth, where they can become something real. Imagine for a second what your life could look like 1 year from now. Not if everything went perfectly, but if you simply started today, just started. Think about the conversations you could have, the relationships you could mend, the business you could build, the book you could write, the inner peace you could begin to find. Not because you did it all perfectly, but because you dared to begin when you didn't feel ready. That kind of choice, that single quiet decision, ripples out farther than we ever imagined. It inspires others. It creates momentum. It turns possibility into memory. One of the greatest lies we tell ourselves is that we are waiting for the right opportunity. But the truth is, the opportunity is always waiting for us. It's sitting quietly in this moment, asking one question. Will you begin? Will you stop negotiating with your fear? Will you stop asking permission from people who don't understand your calling? Will you stop playing small because it feels safer than risking failure? Will you show up even if you don't know what you're doing because something deep inside you refuses to wait another day? This isn't just about productivity. This is about your life. This is about the part of you that knows there's more than this. More than the comfortable chaos, more than the numb routine, more than the quiet ache of what could have been. That part of you doesn't need a plan. It needs a spark. It needs you to say yes, and mean, to declare, with quiet certainty, I'm starting now. Start the book. Not because you have a bestseller in your head, but because you have a story in your soul. Start the apology. Not because you know it will be accepted, but because it matters that you start the business. Not because you have a perfect strategy, but because you believe in what you're building. Start the healing, not because you know what wholeness looks like, but because you refuse to live wounded any longer. There's something sacred in the start. It honors your humanity. It embraces your potential. It's where your courage meets the road. You don't need to finish today. You don't even need to go far, but you do need to move. One foot, one breath, one word. Start not because you have to, but because you can. Because the person you will become is waiting on the other side of that decision. And when you look back years from now, what you'll remember won't be the fear you felt. It'll be the fire you lit. The moment you chose not to wait for the world to say go. The moment you said it to yourself. You chose to begin today. You don't need to overhaul your entire life today. You don't need 1,000 answers. You just need one bold step in the direction that matters. Do this once. Intentionally. Wholeheartedly. Unapologetically. And watch how the world shifts around you. Because sometimes once is all it takes. Thank you.